Okay, so how was this extremist, Nazi group? How were they uh, stopped? What was the what were the crimes? I know you said for killing, but how did that become uh, a, a way to eradicate them as a criminal organization, identify them as a criminal organization,
Mhm.
and then, you know, put them in jail? I'd like to know that path, even though there's
Mhm.
still all that um, ethos going on now within the border, in the Coast Guard of the state.
Mhm. Yeah, I believe in the end it was 68 defendants who were on trial. I think there was one more, but one passed away throughout that period because it was like a 5-year trial. Um, Different people face different charges, but the umbrella charge for all of it was the criminal organization charge, right?
So
And
were
that
they laundering money? Were they
there were,
just conspiring to murder? What was the there to basically, it sounds like, a, a mafia family was taken down, right? So what
that's what the
was
trial was very much similar to, and I've heard lawyers say that it was sort of modeled off of like organized crime cases that
yeah.
were used against the mafia or mob. Um, but yeah, I mean, so some of the charges, like for instance, there was murder, like I mentioned, the murder of the rapper Pablos Fisas. There were charges for attacks. Some of them were really brutal attacks on like these Egyptian fishermen whose homes were raided and while they were asleep, and they were beaten very brutally. There were weapons charges. There was all sorts of stuff.
What
Hate
made the
speech.
state that one prominent murder, and then it was like, okay, because the people are so upset about this, we're going to go ahead and investigate the group? Is that Was it a response to that? Because it just doesn't sound like it was,
People,
you know.
yeah, people were pissed.
Yeah, okay.
There were large protests and stuff, and
Protests.
that's one of the things that I think is really important when looking at why the state finally moved is that there was always resistance to these people in the streets, to the far right, whether it's Golden Dawn or someone else, and that's true today, and that's something that I've always been really impressed with by the place, is that people are really active, and even back in 2015, like I can remember people putting their bodies in between you know people on the far right and those they wanted to attack. So yeah, there was a lot of public pressure, and eventually I think they just had to move, and it was maybe more self-preservation than anything else.